Oh my God, my dog just farted. Good God, Penny. She's sitting right under me. And I'm like just trying to do my video and she's just farting like crazy. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Rudi and thank you so much for being here. I was gonna tell you to ignore the tooth gem, but I have a diamond on my tooth now. Future video, I'll explain all of it, but it's just a test drive, so if it bothers you, I'm sorry, I kind of like it. In today's video, we are covering my top 7 tips for acne-prone, oily, sensitive skin. These are things I've been learning and doing for the past 10 years. Some of these tips have to do with makeup and beauty, and some of them have to do with just general life, so I'm really excited to dive in, so let's get started. So our first tip is something that I discovered recently when I was watching Dr. Dre's video and realizing that a lot of ingredients that are in our hair care products, like our dry shampoos or our texturizing sprays or things that we're using on the daily, the ingredients in them are kind of shitty. And when we're spraying that around our hairline, we're getting a lot of that stuff on our face, and then we're putting our makeup on top of that, and it's just building throughout the day on our skin. Something I've started doing recently that has made such a huge difference is right when I wake up, if I know that I need to put in my dry shampoo or whatever product that I want to put in my hair before I start my day, I do that before I wash my face. So I wake up, head to the bathroom, I notice my hair is greasy because honestly, I get greasy or oily hair within a day of washing my hair. I'm working on training it. And I put the dry shampoo in first, and then I wash my face. So my hair has got the product in it that I like, and then when I wash my face, I'm getting rid of some of those ingredients and the chemicals in your hair product, and you're starting fresh to put on your moisturizer, SPF, and then makeup on top of that. I have noticed a huge decrease in acne in my hairline after using this tip, so I highly, highly recommend doing your hair products first and then applying your skincare. Our second tip, and yes, I have talked about this in many videos. I've talked about it in both my morning and my evening skincare routine. I think it's super important that we do not use our bath towels on our faces. Studies show that we are supposed to be washing our bath towels after every 2 to 3 uses. I know that's not happening in my household, and I'm gonna guess it's not happening in yours either. So when you think about the bathroom environment, it's very humid. There's a lot of bacteria growing in there because that's where we wash ourselves. So those towels are just really growing a lot of things that we don't really want to put directly on our face, especially when we have sensitive skin. So my tip is leaving your face wet, and this is good for multiple reasons. So 1, we're keeping ourselves away from those dirty towels, but 2, if we're putting on our moisturizer on a wet or damp face, it's actually going to seal in that moisture, especially if you're using a product with hyaluronic acid, and plump your skin, and it's going to keep it nice and fresh for the rest of the day. Tip number 3 is going to be a makeup hack. So especially if you have oily skin, we are all familiar with the ever popular blotting sheet. So you're probably wondering why this one is dark. I actually got these on Amazon, and I will link them down below with some of the videos that I've mentioned already, but these are bamboo tissue papers, and there's 100 in them, and look how big they are, okay? A normal blotting sheet is like half the size, and they actually have charcoal in them, and they're made from bamboo. So these are the ones that I recommend using just because I know if you're oily, you're using these a lot. So let's get into the tip. The tip is when you get greasy throughout the day, I know that you want to immediately go and apply your powder because we're so used to, as oily people, using powder to mattify our face, which that is something I totally agree with. But it's important that we get rid of that excess oil before we apply powder to our face so that we're not mixing all of the bacteria and oil that we've got on our face with our makeup, causing for further acne. So the tip is to blot your face thoroughly before applying your powder. Not only is it going to get rid of that oil and allow you to place a thinner layer of powder on your face, but it's going to keep you from breaking out down the road. So I like to just, and I'm not going to show you the final product on this paper.
Trust me, you don't want to see that.
I like to just blot, especially in my T-zone and around my nose, those areas where I'm always getting oily. And then I go in with my powder, especially if I'm on the go. This is a Bare Minerals pressed powder. I highly, highly recommend it. I just take my sponge from the inside and I go and powder those areas that I just blotted, and I look so much more fresh than if I were to apply directly on top of my grease. It actually makes your makeup last much longer, and it looks a lot better because powder and grease really they don't make a beautiful consistency, I'll tell you that. My next tip may seem silly, but honestly, it's helped me out a lot, especially as someone who likes to wear hats. Especially if you have forehead acne, I know what it feels like when you have something on your head, but you really want to control the sun and you don't want to get sunburnt, but at the same time, you're wondering, is this gonna affect my acne? There's a lot of sweat and stuff going on my forehead. The best thing that I have found is to create a barrier between you and your hat with a piece of tissue paper or a piece of blotting paper even. So I will take my tissue or my Kleenex and I will fold it into a small rectangle or a square, and I'll place that on the inner edge, the inner rim of my hat, and then I'll put my hat on it. I find that the sweat and grease absorbs into the Kleenex instead of on the hat, which is gonna continue to be worn over and over, holding some of that bacteria in. I love hats, I think they look so cute, and this has been the best way for me to continue wearing them without getting acne. The next couple tips we're gonna cover are talking about blemishes and the best way to treat and cover them. I know that as people with acne-prone skin, we can be very easily drawn into wearing very high coverage foundations. I have been there myself. I totally understand the logic behind that. Personally, I have found over the years, as I've started to get into lower coverage looks, there are better ways to cover your pimples and your blemishes in a smaller, more highly concentrated concealer. I mentioned in my video about the best makeup for oily and acne-prone skin while you're going in breakouts. The NARS Pot Concealer, I have mine in color Custard. This is the absolute best concealer, or something like it, that's very concentrated in a pot that you use to cover a specific pimple instead of using a full coverage foundation over the entire face, creating a mask and maybe getting more pimples in areas that you didn't actually have them in the first place. I find that it's best to cover them up individually. So I'll show you here. I don't have very many actives, but I do have something under my eye right about here. So I'm going to take a small, very small pencil style brush. You're gonna want to have something small enough to pinpoint an area on your face. I'm gonna dip into this. What we're gonna do is just take that very concentrated concealer and place it on that area. And I leave it as is. I let it sit for a second because I think that it really helps to melt into the skin and it doesn't stand out. And then I take, this is actually an eyeshadow brush from Real Techniques, but it's flat. It's a domed flat brush, as you can see here. And I use this for my blemishes because I find that it really helps push that product into the skin instead of keeping it on the top layer. So we have the blemish covered here. And we're gonna go in and start to pat that out, especially around the edges. So now that area is covered, and you can add your powder on top of that instead of having the multiple layers of coverage and foundation and adding a concealer on top. I like to keep it very light with our first layer and then add coverage in the places that need it after that. Now, if that doesn't work, that's going to lead us into our next tip, which would be using a eyeliner or a lip liner pen in a darker color, maybe in a brown, to conceal that mark as a beauty mark. Okay, there have been times in my life where I have had quite a few beauty marks in places that don't actually have them, okay? Sometimes when you're going through something,
you need to make a few beauty marks, okay?
I like to use an eyebrow pen. This is the Brow Stylist Definer by L'Oreal. I think it's a dupe for the Anastasia Brow Wiz personally. Let's say this guy near my under eye is not going away, okay? The concealer trick didn't work. It's gonna be showing. In that case, I like to just take the end of my tip and do a little circle here. So rotate the pencil, and create a tiny little beauty mark. It doesn't have to be super dark, but just dark enough that, oh yeah, she has a beauty mark there. For sure, that's real. It's always been there. It's a freckle. In fact, I was born with this, but tomorrow it'll be gone. That's one of my favorite tips, and also I have found some really cute places to put beauty marks from that, so highly recommend trying it out on your next pimple. Nobody wants to have acne. Even when we're covering it up with makeup, we would rather it not be there, right? So one of my favorite tricks, and it's also something I've mentioned in my skincare routine videos, is using pimple patches. So I use the CosRX patches. They are meant to help heal the skin, especially if you have a pimple that is ready to be popped. The best thing you can do is avoid popping it and use a pimple patch on it. This is for multiple reasons. One, it's going to help pull the impurities out of your skin, but also it's going to keep you from touching your face, which is one of the most important things that you can do when you're dealing with acne, is keeping your hands away from your face. Another great use for pimple patches, if you're confident enough, is to wear them during the day. I actually wear the clear CosRX patches on the weekends when I'm at home or if I'm just going to the grocery store, because it helps protect your skin from the sun. When you're applying SPF, that definitely helps, but when you have acne, it's extra sensitive and photosensitive to the sun. So I like to apply the patch, 1, to keep myself from picking at it, but 2, to give myself an extra layer of protection from the sun. My last tip is about setting your face and how people with sensitive but oily skin can avoid using very high chemical setting sprays, which I am not saying I dislike, because my favorite setting spray is the Urban Decay All Nighter. I know I mentioned that I wore this on my wedding day. I think there is absolutely a time and a place for this, but if you have sensitive skin, it's not a great idea to use that every day. At the same time, if you're using powder products to keep yourself from being very oily, I know you don't want to keep that powdery look, especially right after you've put your makeup on. So my tip is actually using a sponge or your beauty blender damp to help set your face. While your beauty blender is still damp, I like to roll it over my face just to help set, but also really blend together all of the layers of powder that we've put on. So let's say I just put my makeup on. What I'm gonna do is take this side here and just start to roll and really disperse some of that water that's in your beauty blender onto your face. I'm not saying necessarily this is going to make your makeup last all day, but it is going to make it look very natural. Please let me know down below what tips that you have accumulated throughout your life living with oily, acne-prone, or sensitive skin. I'm always looking to try new things, and I would love to hear from you guys. Also, I wanted to mention, if you like the makeup look I have on today, I did something very similar in my last video, which was cream makeup for oily skin. We're busting the myth on oily skin people not being able to wear cream products, so if you like that, I will go ahead and link that up above. I will see you guys in the next one.